Ramon,
Where's Lucy?
and Lucy.
She was on earlier. There's Ramon.
Ramon coming.
Okay, there's Rick.
I think Lucy's the only one that we're waiting on.
Okay, there's Lucy. She just popped on.
Okay.
Or she did.
Yeah, she's on there.
She's on there? Okay,
Yes,
let's go ahead and continue the meeting. I think we left off with there was no city manager report and no city updates. Public hearings, we have none. Consent agenda, we have none. And we have information or discussion items. We have none on that, but we do have some action items. So action items to be accompanied by a brief statement of facts, including where funds are coming from if applicable. Action items limited up to 10 per meeting after being called upon by the mayor or mayor pro tem. Citizens to state their name and the ward in which they reside. Priority will be given to citizens of Alpine and those who own business or property in the city. Individuals who do not live or own business or property in the city limits of Alpine will be allowed to speak at this time available. And I'll turn it over to you, City Manager.
Honorable Mayor, City Council, the one item we have on the emergency meeting tonight is to discuss, consider amending ordinance 2020-0601, an emergency ordinance of the city of Alpine that was approved by council on last Tuesday, June 23rd, 2020, or an additional action item as determined by council. Just to give a couple quick stats, or does somebody want to make a motion and then I can give some stats from the meeting this morning?
Rick?
I'm not sure what motion I'm going to make, but at this point, I'll make a motion to reaffirm ordinance 2020-06-01 as presented, with an expectation we'll amend it later on, but that's my motion to reapprove it.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion's made in second. Any discussion?
Well, now we want to have the discussion.
And now we can have the discussion.
Let's go through the statistics because when the emergency meeting was called, we didn't have the full breadth of the statistics. So right now, Brewster County, population of 9,267 residents. There are 137 positive results as of close of business yesterday. There are 37 recovered and 1 death, leaving 99 unresolved. Brewster County has 14.8 cases per 1,000 people. The Texas average right now is 5.5 cases per 1,000 people. So we're close to 3 times the volume of the state of Texas. The Sul Ross mass testing from June 18th to the 20th resulted in 46 positive cases there was actually 759 tests done. That's a 6% positive rate. The following Tuesday, so last Tuesday, the 23rd, a mobile testing unit at the EMC Center, June 23rd, found 61 positive cases out of 214 total tests. That's a 28.5% positivity rate. For the Tri-County area, so Presidio, Brewster, and Jeff Davis counties, total testing done is 2,412 tests. Negative tests, 1,422. There's still roughly about 800 tests outstanding right now. The question this morning to Dr. Escobar was, do we see any specific patterns through the contact tracing? Because we know early on that a local restaurant plus some of the community gatherings were driving some of the initial cases. But what she said right now is that it seems to be very much community spread. The positives are coming from several different environments, up to and including a family that had been doing a really good job with wearing masks, social distancing, staying away. They had a refrigerator delivered to their home. And the person who delivered it, unfortunately, had COVID-19 and spread it to the entire household. So out of the 137 in Brewster County, 3 of the new positives are over in Marathon. One of the new positive tests is down at Big Bend National Park. I do believe that the superintendent at Big Bend National Park, Bob, many of you know Bob Crumacre, he has one of his staff members, I believe, is positive, and so that's going to require some quarantine of other staff members would be my assumption on that. So that could impact certainly the park's ability to open further. I mean, they've slowed things down, and they may have to even retract from where they were at. Mayor, anything else did I miss from that meeting?
Yeah, there was also, when they talked about the age, it's not only citizens, it was from age 18 to 70. Now, 2/3 are 50 and older. So it's impacting everybody as far as getting infected. And so, that's something that I think that we need to really stress on wearing the mask and to prevent this. I think that's the #1 factor to prevent the spread of it. I've seen more and more people now that we, once we received the 86, I noticed Sunday, a lot of people were wearing the mask. And now with this 137 cases, I think that'll probably wake up some folks and say, this is real. And of course, the 1 death, unfortunately, that we had here in Alpine. So, I just want to make sure that council's aware of everything that's going on so we can stay on top of it. But I think it's critical that we might have to make some decisions that are pretty hard, pretty tough. But all in all, we're only doing it because we care about our community and we want what's best for them. A lot of times there are hard calls that we have to make, but if it's going to impact the community, we need to really look at it, study it before we make those decisions. Of course, as the judge had already mandated the wearing of masks. Do we want to write another or amend the ordinance to do the same, or leave it as is? And let's see what becomes of the judge's ordinance. And it's going to be up to council to decide on this.
I think we should follow the judge's ordinance.
Okay, this is going to be discussion, and then we'll ask for a motion to just let it lay it as is. Okay, let it stay. Yes, sir. I see your brain thinking there.
One of the other things that was discussed at that meeting this morning, Pete Geigo was on part of the meeting. He certainly knows Governor Abbott, has a good relationship with the governor's chief of staff. The request to Pete was, could you have a discussion with the governor about him getting on board with allowing some of the more rural areas to have a stricter ordinance around health and safety, most specifically around the masks, potential shelter at home, and social distancing. And the reason for that is, looking at these existing ordinances or executive orders that are passed, starting with Bexar County and then those that got replicated. One of the concerns I had from an applicability standpoint, and I know I've spoke with others on this, is the orders state that, and even the Brewster County order says this, is that a mask is required if social distancing cannot be attained. And so when we think about where the majority of concerns are coming in relative to masks, tend to be the larger stores like the Porters, the dollar stores. And the ordinance does not really cover those stores because, if you've got an 8,000 square foot store, it's pretty easy to maintain social distancing at 6 foot. It doesn't say it's required. It just says whether it can be maintained or not. And so I think from, part of our request to Pete and part of the discussion this morning was, can we be allowed to write something more strict like some of the other states have done? For example, New York, California, I know New Mexico has an order that is real clear and says if you're in a business or a place like that, you have to wear a mask. So something that will be part of that discussion, I believe that Pete will have potentially with the governor. Just wanted to throw that out there.
Yes, sir.
So, as you all recall, we had a discussion back on April 24th about putting masks in place, and there was some significant pushback then. You know, we're a lot smarter now, and my sense is there's alignment about the need for masks, which in my mind is good. And I think the article that came out from UT Southwestern Medical Center, that article provides 10 myths and 10 truths about masks. It clearly demonstrates the value of masks. If there's any question that people have about that relative to the spread and, you know, the statistics, when both are wearing a mask, those who are potentially infected, those are not, the infection rate goes down significantly, down to about 1%. So in my mind, I'm supportive of the mask requirement. I do believe, to Eric's point, that I don't agree that the Brewster County ordinance is sufficient to cover the big box stores, because in reading through it, unless, you know, Rod would push back on me, the requirement is that the commercial, and I'm reading the ordinance itself. It says that the goods and those businesses providing goods and services must implement a health and safety policy. The policy must require at a minimum that all employees or visitors to the commercial entity's business premise or other facilities wear a mask when in an area or performing an activity which will necessarily involve close contact or proximity to coworkers or the public where 6 feet of separation is not feasible. So that is not a mandatory mask requirement. It is basically says if it's within 6 feet or where that separation is not feasible, then they must have a mask. The other part is the businesses have to document and post their health and safety policy so that people can read it. So long as a business fulfills those two requirements, they've met the obligation. That is not a mandatory mask requirement. So in my view, we should address that. The second item I would make about the county ordinance is outdoor gatherings are prohibited except where there's 100 people, you know, so if it's excess of 100 people, they're prohibited. My reaction is getting 100 people together on Alpine, you know, that'd be a tough deal to go work. So it says, in addition to that, you know, outdoor services. So youth camps are okay. Recreational programs for youth are okay. So all our kids could go play baseball or softball or football. We could open the swimming pool or a water park. Or if we had a zoo, which we don't unless someone wants to put me there, and we can certainly have rodeo. So in my view, the ordinance that was signed by the county, frankly, is going to be ineffective to resolve the issues that we're talking about, which is about the need to wear masks when you enter a building. That's one. Number two, it doesn't say anything about restaurants, which in my mind is a concern, particularly all of the data that's out there now that says when someone's indoors for an hour or more and someone else is in that restaurant, even though they are social distancing, there is a much higher probability that COVID will be transmitted through the air handling system. So that's a concern. And again, the third concern I have is I struggle with what the county has done with regard to prohibiting outdoor activities and excluding a whole bunch of items. So I believe there are potential solutions for all these, but before going to those solutions, those are my opinions and perspectives relative to what the county has put in place, because frankly, I don't believe it's going to stem the issue that we have right now with the dramatic increase. And my concern is we need to stem it. We need to drive it in the right direction, but I don't think the ordinance will meet the requirement. I'll be quiet right now. I'll be ready to come back for further discussion.
When you go back to your second item, Rick, I totally agree that something that totally left out is your air handlers. You know, we've already had a prime example at Spicewood when all those folks gathered there. Okay. And, you know, your grocery stores is another prime example. You know, you got your intakes right there and it's throwing it right back into the public. So yes, that thing does need to be addressed. Totally agree with that. Anybody else?
I think, you know, the ordinance that we're looking at from the city, it's it just it like talks about the signs to put on the doors, whether the place requires masks or not, but it doesn't talk about any of those other things that are in the ordinance from the county about outdoor gatherings and things. So is that something we're going to be talking about, is how we're going to make this ordinance stronger, or are we just, I'm just, that's what I'm asking.
So in my view, Maria, yes, we need to address that. I have some preliminary thoughts about the ordinance we already have in place to be able to modify that to make it mandatory to wear a mask. I think it'll resolve the issue that I highlighted from the county ordinance. I do believe we need to address the outdoor gatherings, and I also believe we need to address the air handlers. But that's why I put my comments out there. My intent was to be quiet, let everyone else share their perspective before making a recommendation.
Lucy?
I do think that we do need to enhance and make the city ordinance more stronger. Definitely the mask, because a lot of the stores were not even putting the signs up, or they didn't even want to deal with it.
Okay.
The social gathering outside, when you have mass quantities, that just needs to stop.
Right. No,
I'm sorry.
We've gotten very complacent because when they opened up Texas, everybody went to this feeling that, hey, the virus is subsiding, everything's gonna be okay. And then all of a sudden, boom, in a matter of a few days, it exploded. So we do need to really modify this ordinance and put some teeth into it, you know, and we need to get our business community to buy into it. You know, we had 2 of our retailers here where they had 1 employee in each one of those locations. I didn't know anything about it till last Thursday. When I found out, I was like, wow. And I've seen these folks walk around the retail without a mask, and, you know, and you know, dealing with their employees and whatnot. I mean, and then they deal with the public on top of that. So I'm all for making it mandatory that the retailers do provide, you know, do make it mandatory that masks be worn when they go into the establishment. Yes, sir, Rod.
Unfortunately, I think the way the county's ordinance is drafted is about as strict as you're allowed under the governor's orders. And I was just reviewing the Hidalgo County and Bexar County orders, and they follow what Judge Cano has done. And I know they've been struggling and trying their best to try to make stricter orders. And this gets into the friction or the frustration of we as local officials trying to do something, and the governor sort of has our hands tied. But remember that under the governor's orders, we can't make orders against the individuals. We can make orders against the business and make the business have people wear masks if they can't keep their social distance.
Well, I think that's the intent. We're not talking about individuals. We're
Right.
talking about the retailers. You know, making people.
So to your point, Rod, okay, the county ordinance opens a big door for large facilities. Is if the city were to take action that regardless of the facility size and regardless of social distancing, to require wearing of masks to enter a premise, is that within the allowable, or is that just not allowed?
I don't think that's allowed because I think it has to be calculated to the 6-foot distance according to the governor's order.
Okay,
So-
then, in my view, we have a worthless ordinance.
But it's just, it goes back to the bigger cities in Alpine have been trying to make a stronger mandatory mask ordinance, and it appears that the strongest they can come up with is what the Brewster County's done.
Yeah, I just got a text from Gail Yanovich that there's a movement to boycott Alpine businesses.
By what?
Where
For
did-
what?
Yeah.
What's that?
For what reason?
Because of not requiring folks to wear the mask, I guess. It's
Well, we have an
very,
ordinance out right now that applies to the whole county. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't get that. Jeez.
Yeah. But that's the message I got. And that's all she put on there.
Well, thank you, Gail.
And one other point, Council and Mayor, this doesn't mean that any business can't have a stricter policy. Businesses can require whatever they want to.
Right, I mean, it's their business, don't act like you're the only business in town and do what you want to do. You got to be mindful of the community.
So back to this one, commercial entities. So Rod, how do we handle and how do this apply to restaurants?
Well, the governor's order has a carve out for restaurants.
But the one that Elazar signed does not.
Right, but remember that the governor's issued previous orders, that his orders take precedence over local orders.
Okay, so we're trying to help our residents figure out how to work through this maze. This is a goddamn goat rope.
It is. And so restaurants can now, according to the governor's order, be open to 50% capacity.
Correct.
To be open at 50% capacity, they're supposed to keep people 6 feet away from each other and only let people that come in a group be closer than that. That's the restaurant rule.
Okay, but that's not, Elazar put out one relative to commercial entities and then put another outdoor gatherings. Why is paragraph 4 of the county ordinance even required?
I'm trying to pull it up here.
It says outdoor.
You're talking about the executive order, Rick?
Yeah, the one he just put out yesterday.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Cynthia.
That's okay.
Executive order.
Yeah, I see where you're doing, yeah. The commercial entities and then the outdoor gathering prohibits.
Yeah.
Well, on the health and safety commercial entities, the last sentence says that not to exceed $1,000 for each violation. But then right above the outdoor gathering, it says that consistent with the executive order of the governor, no civil or criminal penalties will be imposed.
Yeah, well,
On
that's on
individuals.
individuals.
I think, not the business.
Yeah,
Yeah.
individuals versus the business.
Yeah, that's on the individual, Cynthia.
Yes.
So that's what I was talking about earlier, that these things, we can only impose it on businesses, not on individuals. Make the
Right, and
business-
that's what I think what Rick and I were saying, that we're talking about the business entity of it, not the individual, but the business requiring folks to wear, mandatory to wear a mask when they go inside their place of business.
So if they don't follow this, is there someone that's actually going to follow through with citations for this?
Well, I don't know. Last time we had this discussion, the sheriff said, and the judge said no.
I think their positions have changed slightly. I saw that the sheriff posted something yesterday on Facebook about it, and he was saying that he would stand up for the businesses if they couldn't get the individual to leave, that they were asking to leave without a mask, if that was the problem, that they would come in and stand up for the businesses and they would help take care of
Good.
stuff.
Thank you, Maria. That helps.
Okay, so then he is going to support it then.
But
That's
if
what
a
it sounded
business
like.
if a business isn't reporting that and they just allow their patrons to be in there without a mask, then nobody would go out.
Right.
Yeah, so no one's gonna enforce it.
If the business doesn't report it, it can be enforceable.
Right.
Right.
So Rod,
Yes, sir.
let me ask you this. So as I understand, when we passed our emergency ordinance last Tuesday, Presidio followed up the next day, and they did the same thing, except they didn't give businesses an option for a yellow sign. They had to petition to get a yellow sign, which in essence said, in order to minimize the spread, it requires wearing a face mask that covers the nose and mouth to enter a building. Is that correct?
Yes, the Presidio ordinance followed ours to say that you have to wear it, but the businesses, one business said they wanted an exception because they're a gym.
Okay.
And of course, restaurants we know are accepted by the governor's order anyway.
So to that point, what I'm suggesting is we could make a simple modification of our ordinance that in order to minimize the spread, you got to wear the green sign. Businesses who wish to petition the city might get approval for masks to be optional. But that would that meet the state requirement if we say you got to wear a mask?
If we say that you have to wear a mask, period, as opposed to telling the businesses they have to tell people to wear a mask if they can't stay 6 feet apart, we're probably going beyond what the governor allows.
So I'm just wondering how Presidio was able to then pass an ordinance that says you got to wear a mask to go in a building.
That's what they wanted to do, and they did.
Okay, so I'm just making sure I'm clear. They made a decision to be more strict and no one's pushed back yet.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Because I know you spent.
They have a pretty unified business community down there that's cooperating with all of this.
Okay, I got it. So that makes it.
I don't think you could say the same thing about Alpine.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
But, you also have to look in Presidio, the economics of the town itself. I mean, very few people have insurance. So yeah, they want to follow the guidelines. There's a big difference.
Okay.
No.
So where we're heading around, at least on one of the points, we could, in theory, even though we've talked about a whole bunch of issues, we could replace the existing ordinance paragraph 1, health and safety policy, with paragraph 2 in the county executive order.
Yes.
Okay?
Is it doable?
So
It's legal.
Okay.
So I'm going to propose, I'm going to try and take these 1, 2, 3. I'm going to propose an amendment to the emergency ordinance 20, I hate putting this stuff online, the emergency ordinance 2020-06-01 to replace paragraph 1, health and safety policy, commercial entities, with the language in the Brewster County executive order dated yesterday with paragraph 2, it's in its entirety. That's my motion.
I'll second.
Okay. Rick has made a motion and it's seconded. Is there any discussion on that? Guys, now's the time to come up. If you have questions, let's get it on the open.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
the only question I have is if we go with the proposed wordage on the executive order signed by the county is the enforcement. Does that mean that a business owner, if he has someone that wants to come in and has no mask, that business owner can call a law enforcement entity? Would that mean that they can either call the sheriff or they can call the municipal police to come and take action?
Is that your intent, Rick?
Well, it's no different than what, frankly, we don't need to do anything with paragraph 1. I could delete the whole doggone thing. The county ordinance would be in place, and the answer to that would be yes.
Okay.
Okay. Any more discussion?
The only other thing I'd like to add is it's amazing the number of cases that have resulted now in the Tri-County area. And it's growing. Hopefully it'll, at some point soon, it'll peak and stop and we can get back to some normalcy. But it seems to me like our residents, as well as residents of the other 2 counties, by now should be aware that there is something happening and they've got to take action on their own to care for themselves and their family. My question is, what can we as a municipality do to help in that area of education? I noticed this morning as I was driving in from Marathon, I noticed the power solar sign that says Entering Alpine Welcome. Please adhere to local ordinances, especially the wearing of masks. That is excellent. That's I have no idea who came up with the idea, but kudos to whoever did.
Mayor.
What else can we do?
The mayor.
Thank you.
What else can we do to educate people? Radio spots, English, Spanish, I don't know, once, twice a week. What else? What else can we do to reinforce the educational aspects to the importance of masks?
We've done PSAs, okay? City manager has posted, updated on our city website also. Okay, the county now has a Facebook page that deals strictly with the virus and nothing else. Okay, and I check on it once in a while to see there's updates. It's gonna be a daily update on that. I mean, I don't know what else we can do. I've written articles in the newspaper on that. Perhaps council can do letters to the editor also and go that route to educate people and probably do it in Spanish, if that's what it takes. But, my suggestions were to do it at 9 o'clock. I think that's when, Rick, you have your time on the radio, because that's one of the busiest times. And also, I believe 7 o'clock, the Spanish station.
Yep.
So those are your prime hours that we want to hit to so we can cover the entire community, both in English and Spanish.
Another suggestion from my part would be knowing that there's not too many people in town that are computer literate. So going to the website, although it's a good website, I have to agree, but not many people can even log in to find out what's going on in the city.
Right.
Whether people listen to radio or not, I don't know. But
Well,
what about a message, written message where we can go door to door and hand out to people at homes?
Well, I mean, we can attach one for your water or sewer bill, I think, city manager.
Yes, we can put, but we've already sent out the bills for this month, so you're 30 days away, about 26 days away.
Yeah, a mock mailing of some sort. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Just a little mail out.
Yeah, a mail out.
But I think we're getting away from Rick's motion right now.
Yeah.
So let's get back to it. Any more discussion on Rick's motion?
So that's the First Amendment, Mayor, and I presume you're going to talk to the amendment because I got other things I want to talk about too relative to the motion.
Okay. So we got the amendment. We've already discussed it. There's some more discussion on it.
Okay, so you want me to talk about the rest of the motion?
Yes, sir, please.
So as I've already expressed, I am not supportive of the Brewster County outdoor gathering paragraph. I think it's a waste of time
Mhm.
because it will not solve any problem. Because it says outdoor gatherings estimated to be in excess of 100 people are prohibited. You know, as I said, getting 100 people together, unless it's for a ball game, is tough. And then it says exceptions for this include, so it's got a whole list of stuff.
Mhm.
And I see no value in the outdoor gathering prohibition. And so I would ask you, Rod, what flexibility do we have relative to this? And back to Ramon's part, our issues, frankly, we can solve all the issues of people not wearing masks. And so we're going to solve the issue of wearing masks in buildings. That is not what's causing what's going on. It's the social gatherings and the backyards and everything else. Therein lies the issue. And I would dare say that's over half the spread that's occurring in our community right now.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure we, city council, have any ability to control that. And the
That's-
county one certainly doesn't solve the problem.
Yeah, we talked about that too, Rick, that we can't enforce a backyard gathering. And you're right, that's where a lot of it came in, birthday parties, you know, barbecues. That's what's, you know, really driving this virus.
And Rick, I guess the best way to control that is just more education, you know, more public service stuff, more stuff on the radio, and maybe some Facebooking might help on that. You know, I've looked at a couple of other ordinances such as Austin, and Austin really sort of started to require everybody to wear a mask everywhere, but the governor says you can't do that. And so I'm not that fond of asking Alpine to step out ahead of what the governor allows.
So, yeah, and I appreciate that, Rod. My view has been relatively straightforward, and it goes back to the document that Eric shared with you that I drafted a lot of that relative to our philosophy. I believe that our philosophy from Alpine, and I think publishing more than an ordinance is important. Ordinance is implementation. I believe first, we as a city council need to strongly recommend that everyone wear a mask. You're not going to fine anyone or penalize everyone, but all the data tells us, and including this UT Southwestern article, I think we need to put this on the city website because it talks about the myths of masks. It's got 10 myths. And I think we need to take a position that is in the best interest of people on Alpine to wear masks, except when they're exercising in their car or at home with what I call their COVID-free family. So I think that's one element, and we need to figure out a good PSA process for that. I think the second part is that while we like it or not, all the past data will tell us, and I think we're seeing that in the other states across the US, and as one who spends an awful lot of time in California, because mom's out there, California was doing a great job, and they mandated masks across the state as soon as, and we watched it occur. We walked into a store one day, masks were no longer required, they were recommended. And within 2 weeks, they spiked it over 6,000 or 7,000 a day in terms of California. And then they put the mask restriction right back on, and it's bringing it right back down. We're not going to sway the governor unless Pete can pull some weight to go work that, because that's the political issues that the governor's got. But I do believe we need to help people recognize we are in the first wave, not the second wave. And the second wave will probably show up in the September, October timeframe. So the more that we as council can model the behavior of wearing masks wherever we go, the better we will be in terms of trying to help get this message across. So I think the notion of wearing masks is critically important. I think the ordinance we can certainly do. I have to admit, I don't care whether we do an ordinance or not because the county's already got it covered. But I am in total disagreement with the outdoor gathering prohibition in the county executive statement. So I think just replacing paragraph 1 with the paragraph we talked about makes sense. I think to the third element, I think city and we as council need to endorse that the city take action to work with all the restaurant owners and with experts in the HVAC business to be able to come back with thoughts and recommendations at a future meeting about what's the best way to protect patrons who are inside a building for a meal. I think, and the other element I think is related to that. I think we as city council need to look at how is it that we can authorize or open up sidewalks and or outdoor venues, which could intake part of the street to allow the restaurateurs to continue to run their business, but use city outdoor space until such time as air handlers are updated or resolved so that they can go do business. Because my fundamental view is we as citizens ought to wear a mask. We got to support businesses going forward. The last thing we can afford to do is shut them down. And we got to figure out how to go do that. So let me bring that all the way back around. The amendment to the ordinance as presented, I believe we ought to pass as amended, and I believe there needs to be 2 other actions. First is cause the city to pull together the restaurant owners to look at options to help improve their air handling systems. And second, as part of that, a recommendation to come back to the city council with their thoughts about how they can maximize outdoor space, which could include city property, so that those businesses can go forward. So with that, Mayor, I would let the ordinance, the amendment stand as is, and then we can do the other 2 as action items out of that, if you're okay with that.
Okay, no, I'm fine with that. One addition, we, I think Eric mentioned it, is to have the businesses put their health guidelines up front where it's posted, where people can see it as they come in.
Well, that's a requirement of the paragraph 1 from the county.
Right, okay. Very good. So we're gonna let the ordinance stay as is, and then we're gonna do the 2 changes on it, correct?
Well, no, so we are going to amend the ordinance as was passed last week to replace paragraph 1, health and safety policy, commercial entities, with paragraph 2, health and safety policies, commercial entities, as was provided in the executive order of Brewster County Judge.
Okay, got it. Okay. Already discussed it. Is there any more discussion on this? Seeing none, let's vote on it then. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Rick.
Mhm. So related to this, Mayor, because it's the same action item under the agenda, I would propose a resolution that the city of Alpine convene the restaurateurs and appropriate HVAC experts to discuss and consider recommendations to the city that would fall in 2 categories. 1, how they would improve or modify the existing HVAC systems to reduce the risk of COVID spread. And 2, to recommend how the city should allocate city sidewalks or city thoroughfares to help ensure they have adequate space to run their restaurants outdoors until such time as their HVAC systems are modified.
Okay.
Do you get all that, Cynthia?
I'm still writing, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's recorded. That's the good news.
Yeah, that's the good news. I did have one question though. Well, go ahead and finish and then I'll ask.
No, that's my motion.
That's your motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Now, discussion. I've got something kind of add to what you're saying on the sidewalk, the use of sidewalk. Some restaurants that have beer or alcoholic beverages, they'll be on the sidewalk drinking it.
So far, the governor has excluded, I thought he closed all the bars.
Yeah.
You can't
Yeah,
be
but you
on-
got some that are 51% sell food and then 50% with alcohol.
Good point, Mayor. So then I would amend that the resolution and recommendations would exclude sale of alcoholic beverages.
Okay. Got that, Cynthia?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any discussion?
Come on,
Seeing-
gang, you got to say something.
No, I'm going like.
I have a question about the HVAC stuff. I just hadn't heard anything about it changing it up. I haven't heard anything that you can do anything to make it better or to keep it from spreading. I just hadn't heard that.
Your filtration system is number one.
Yep. So if you recall when we had the flu running through before, there were a number, and I've talked to a couple HVAC folks. That's why I want to get the experts in, because I'm not an expert in this, although I have a pretty good sense. There are a couple things that can happen. One is, like the masks we wear, the frequency change of HVAC filters can make a big difference. And I would dare say most restaurants haven't been changing their HVAC filters on any regular frequency. You can also put in different level filters that have a much greater impact on the air itself going through. So in my mind, that's one of the elements. The other element, Maria, is UV systems can be installed. And in fact, I found out there were a lot of UV systems installed in restaurants in Alpine when the swine flu was going through. And the good news is they were put in. The bad news is as soon as that went away, people stopped maintaining them, and you have to change out the UV systems. Now, in my house, we have a house in Whittier, California. We have a UV system in that house because some of our family members are ultra sensitive to a number of items. So not only do we have HEPA filters, which clean out everything, including COVID, but we also have a UV system in place, and we do get it maintained every 6 months to maintain it. So there are systems out there, and I think now is the time. And as soon as I finish this, if there's any time left in the school board meeting, in my opinion, one of the things I hope our school board is looking at is what they're going to do to allocate dollars to modify wall surfaces, HVAC systems, and everything else associated with the $23.5 million high school project, because the world has substantially changed since we approved that bond. And I think education is shifting dramatically, and there's a way to go be able to work that in a very real sense. So hopefully that's a little bit more, Maria, but I've been doing a fair amount of research on it.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm thinking one that came to mind recently was the Gringo with their air handler, and you had folks staying upstairs, riding your motorcycle in that garage, and the intake was right in that area. So you're getting all those fumes up there.
Yep.
So that's what brought it to mind about the air handlers. And yeah, definitely need to, look at those and and probably update them like Rick says.
Yeah, another important part of it is, HVAC systems, particularly on the air conditioning heating side, which is where most people use them, they recirculate air through an air intake. One of the things we know about COVID is when you bring in a lot more air from the outside and you take air and you push it out of the facility from a positive pressure standpoint, that also reduces risk, but that requires a change in ducting. It also requires that you run the fans all the time, so you're bringing in fresh air inside or from the outside and pushing air to the outside. So there's lots of things that can be done, and that's why I think it's important to get the experts and the restaurateurs together, because unfortunately, all of this costs money, and restaurants tend to run on a relatively thin margin. So getting the experts together and getting smart people together always comes up with good solutions. So we need to really ask them to go do that.
Yeah, I have 2 air intakes in my system. I just had it installed. So I've got air coming in from 2 different directions.
Mayor,
Yes, sir, Ramon.
I think the idea or the thought of city working with folks in the restaurant business and looking at creative ways of expanding the space out of the establishment in a open air environment, very innovative. I think it's worth looking into. Of course, I'm thinking about the few restaurants that are found in Ward 2 and Ward 4. Actually, there aren't any in Ward 2, but how can will this in essence help them in a potential expansion situation? But overall, I think the idea is very good.
Well, you got one restaurant in Ward 2. I think that's your ward, the Jardín, I think is what it's called, right there on 5th.
That's Ward.
It's on 4.
It's on 4? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I don't think you have any then, but
No.
but that idea is good for them, because we're not trying to shut down any business by any means,
We want to run.
that's the last thing, and that's the message that people are getting out there is that, oh, don't shut me down, don't shut me down, I'm losing money. We're not trying to do that. We're just trying to find innovative ways to keep the business going, okay, and to protect our citizens of Alpine. That's all the bottom line is, nothing more, nothing less.
Well,
So,
and as I think about, for example, Los Jalapenos or Judy's Bread and Breakfast, I mean, those are great opportunities to expand out into the sidewalk and into the parking area. We'll have to figure out how we make sure we provide safety and all that stuff. But I think those are 2 examples that we can be very helpful on. What goes on at Taste and See over on 5th. It's another opportunity. So we're going to have to really get innovative to think about it, so we can allow commerce to go through in vehicles, but also so we help these businesses. And they're going to come up with better ideas, frankly, than when you get smart minds together. And I think to Ramon's idea about getting the word out, maybe we need to print flyers. I'm thinking about what we all do when it comes time to run for city office. I know it took the run for city office, and it's the guy who was pushing one side of the bond issue. There was about 10 people who took flyers throughout the city. It took them a couple days to go do that. But if we put the word out for volunteers, we can probably get 2,500 flyers stuffed in every door in the city of Alpine that says, hey, here are the facts, wear a mask. Maybe we can get a volunteer group to go do that.
I mean, I'll be the first to volunteer on that.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I'll be out there,
I've got
man.
a folder, so I'm happy to fold them, the trifold and all that stuff.
There you go. But no, this is why we have these emergency meetings, and we're going to continue to have them, because we're putting our minds together and coming up with ideas, which is great for the city.
So before we vote, can I ask the city manager his perspective on the motion that's on the floor?
He's been pretty quiet.
I
Well, I've
know.
been listening. I appreciate the dialogue. We did get a public comment that came in from Dave Leet. He's a professional engineer, mechanical engineer.
Yeah.
He did indicate that most HVAC issues are solved by just doing the recommended maintenance. Most people ignore it. I think great case in point. Folks don't follow the maintenance side of things. I've already sent a note to Chris Ruggia, Heather Yaden, Cynthia. We'll start working on this in the morning, gathering those interested parties together. My sense is, we've got a really good restaurant community in town. We've got some good HVAC folks. In fact, the president of the school board does HVAC as well. So we'll see if we can get Mr. Natera engaged on this too. And, then I think the other piece is thinking across the locations in town and the proximity to streets, sidewalks. We can certainly get recommendations from folks on what they would like to see as far as expansion on that. Should be fairly easily achieved as long as we know those specific locations. I think a lot of the work that we've been doing downtown, trying to make it more walkable, should help a few of the restaurants that are downtown too.
Yeah, Tacy C and Judy already have tables outside. Not many, but they do have some tables, and I see it when I go by there.
And I noticed Ann Callaway's on the meeting this evening. She leases out her space to Cedar, and I know they try to do a good job at expanding along the walkway there. So I'll reach out to Ann as well and have either her or Andrew or his wife engaged too.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And Ann provides free masks for people going to her business.
Yeah, she does.
Yeah, and part of it may include taking out some of the parking spaces. While parking is a critical element here in Alpine, we don't have enough of it. We need to think about, and certainly get input from the chief about how we create, barriers or space to protect not only people who would be eating potentially in a parking space, but also to make sure we don't run into with any vehicle areas. So, I mean, in my view, the window's kind of open relative to really letting smart people to go come back to us as council with some recommendations on how to do it for a temporary period of time. And as I said, in my opinion, this is going to go on longer than we all want. So that's why, in my view, it's the long-term solutions we need to be considering to help our businesses, to help our residents, and make this a place where people want to go visit, but at the same time, make it a place that would make it safe.
Absolutely. Okay, let's get back to the motion.
With all the numbers that have gone up so high so quickly, have we even looked at possibly going back and reviewing our tiered response plan? I mean, it looks like, I think one night I saw some on the news that we went up 51 cases overnight.
Yeah,
Just a thought.
yeah, I think Gary kind of mentioned that a little bit today when we were in your office. He chimed in on something like that.
Yeah. I went back and looked at it. It would be hard to adjust the boxes there to meet the variety of ordinances in the governor's executive order. There's just some of those boxes we'd have to do some major shifting. I mean, it would just take some time. I think the solution that was approved on the table, and then working back with the restaurants and the air handling side, gives us something we can really charge after in the short term.
And I think, Cynthia, because you bring up a good point that, we talked about that back in April. I think what we've all learned is the way in which we maintain a healthy environment is we the people have to first protect ourselves by wearing masks. Second, we, the city council, can put in place actions that help enable businesses who are struggling to be successful going forward, and at the same time think about how we can help them support their businesses so people get confidence going into a restaurant and feeling much better. I mean, I think about Magoo as another example. You know, you got Magoo's, he's got as much space in his parking lot as he does inside the building. But
Mhm.
part of it is making sure, you know, before I walk into Magoo's, I'd want to make sure the air handling systems are up to speed, because I've already made a decision. I'm not going inside a restaurant to eat unless I know it's safe. So we got to help our restaurateurs go work that in a way that makes sense. If I go into a hotel room, I can throw open the windows, get all that air blowing through. I feel a lot more comfortable. Restaurants, in my mind, those are the tough ones, because when we go eat, unless we go in and shove the food down our throat, we're in there for an hour to an hour and a half. And that's where the risk has been shown to be very high, because our masks are off, we're shoving stuff in, we're breathing it, and we're also exhaling. Because the other element that, you know, comes up is what we're finding. All of the data shows that those who are asymptomatic can be asymptomatic for 2 weeks before they become symptomatic. And in 2 weeks, they've covered a lot of people. And unfortunately, I think that's the reality we got going in Alpine. So I would not be in favor of doing a tiered response at this point. We have to educate people and help them be accountable and make our businesses safe for people to go in. So,
You know, we also need a business community to take ownership
yep.
of, you know, coming up with innovative ideas. How do I, you know, how can business to survive? How can I keep it open during this pandemic? You know, I think a lot of those, you know, they're thinking, well, city council's going to do this, city council's going to do that. No, how about asking them to join us? You know, they're part of our community and coming up with ideas, you know, to promote their business, a healthy business.
Yep.
So I think, you know, the great ideas that came up out of your motions, Rick. So
What about the city encouraging the restaurants to offer a lot more takeout options, or, you know, encouraging people to just order takeout instead of going and eating at the restaurants?
You know, La Casita did that on their own yesterday. They posted that they're closing their dining area, but they're doing takeouts and they can actually deliver out to your car or your home.
Yeah, I've
and
seen several restaurants pop up and say that, you know, and they're even
Mhm.
offering like family size dinner choices. I think that's pretty smart.
Mhm.
yeah, I think pretty much a lot of the restaurants are doing that on the takeout, which is fantastic.
So Maria,
let's go ahead.
are you wanting to make an amendment to that resolution, adding a third item?
No, I was just saying that might be another thing y'all could talk about.
Good.
That doesn't need to be an amendment, I don't think.
But I think that we brought that up back early on about the takeout.
Yep.
And I think a lot of your restaurants complying with that, with those suggestions. So any more discussion on the motions that Rick has? Betty?
No, I don't have any.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, well, let's vote on it then. All those in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. Betty, you vote?
My hand is up, but
Okay, I just
somehow I
couldn't-
lost you.
Okay, and all those opposed? Okay, none, motion carries. Thank you very much, Rick. Okay. Let's move on. City Councilwoman comments. Well, I'll wait to my comments. Any comments? We'll start with Rick.
So the only comment I'd make, Mayor, is if we want to go do and organize a door-to-door activity to deliver some information, that's no small feat. Is that I'm happy to help, although I'm sure Eric can get the presses going at the city offices to burn up, you know, that'd be 5 reams of paper. But I think we have to figure out what would go on it. And then I think, Eric, it might be you and Chris and Heather figure out the right thing to go on it, and then rely on us volunteers to go distribute. You know, I'm happy to bring my folder to place for a trifold. So if someone wants to give me a call, they're more than welcome to make a nice, succinct message. But that, and I just, you know, these are tough times. But I go back to the principles that I view people need to be responsible and accountable on their own. We as a city leadership need to help our businesses thrive and be successful, and bring together the right partnerships are the right thing to go do, because again, this thing is going to go on longer than we all want it to. I hope I'm wrong. My worry is that our COVID cases, based on statistics with 800 tests outstanding, I think we as the city are going to cross the 200 mark, unfortunately. But my belief is the ordinances and resolution that we passed tonight ought to be sufficient to accommodate that. I just think we have to recognize those are the numbers that we're going to see, and feel comfortable that the actions we're taking tonight are going to serve us long-term.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. Okay, Betty.
I really think that what we've done tonight is a sign that we're in the know and we can do it.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Lucy.
I'm happy with the changes. They need to get done.
Okay, good. Ramon.
The only thing I want to reemphasize is the importance of education, getting the word out to people, as Councilman Stevens mentioned. And I stand ready also to help out, whether it's with the translation to Spanish, and also do some footwork. But we can look at other ways of, and I have no idea what the city budget is like, but if we can come up with some sort of a large quantity leaflet that can be sent out bulk mail, or as we go house to house, or maybe they can be made available at some of the large retail areas where people can pick up. But I think education is important right now. We got to get the word out. Be safe.
That's crucial, is the education. A lot of folks treat it as a common cold. It's not a common cold. It's more serious than this. Okay. Maria.
I'm sorry, and I'll come back because I have another question.
I'll come back around.
I don't really have a lot to say other than I'm glad to see that we're, continuing to work on keeping these masks on people's faces when they're out in public. It makes me feel so much better to see people wearing them, and hopefully it'll keep our numbers from continuing to rise as fast as they have been. That's really all I have to say.
Okay, Rick.
Eric, a question relative to getting flyers out. Deploying a group of 10 people to cover the city for a couple days is not an inconsequential amount of time. If the city were to mail them out, do we have the capacity to do that? And what would the cost be, in the neighborhood of what, $1,000?
Yeah, what I was thinking is we would just go through call it our water bill distribution list. We've got about 2,700 that we send out.
Okay.
If we did a bulk mail at 40 cents a piece, yeah, we're looking at $1,100, $1,200. I think the approach should be both mail and hand deliver, and as Ramon indicated, getting other businesses in town to have stacks of them to be available for people that walk out. So
Okay.
that'll be something else that Chris and Heather and Gio and Cynthia and I will work on tomorrow. We've got Leslie, who supports Eddie. She's Spanish is her first language too, so she does all of our translation for us.
Great.
Yeah.
So we'll do a front and back, Spanish, English.
Great. Thanks,
Okay,
Eric.
very good.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, Rod.
Yes, sir.
I get hit with this. It's violating my rights. To me, that really doesn't hold water, because I'm violated if I can't stay healthy. So what on it? I mean,
Well, we're not violating rights. We're trying to protect the rights of the people that don't want to get sick. We're, as I pointed out, our hands are tied because of the governor. We can't mandate individuals wearing masks everywhere, but we go as far as we can to mandate that business is required in the businesses. The rights are sort of it's a two-way street. Somebody says, well, I may have the the right not to have to wear a mask, but other people have a right not to get sick.
And that's basically my explanation to folks. You know, the person on dialysis with a heart disease, respiratory disease, right to stay as healthy as they can with all the health issues they're having. So yeah, then I just tell them it's a two-way street there.
It's a relatively modest thing to wear a mask because the statistics are showing us that really a lot of the spread of COVID comes from healthy people that don't have symptoms. So people think, I don't have it, I don't need to wear a mask. Well, you could have COVID and you could be spreading it to everybody in your backyard barbecue or you know, at the park and not know you're doing it because you don't have symptoms. So like Rick pointed out, if two people to a conversation are both wearing masks and one of them has COVID, it's only a 1% chance of COVID getting transmitted. The masks work.
Right. And, you know, this past few weeks, it's been proven those are not wearing masks and not doing the social distances, how quickly it has spread from 0 for, 3 months almost. All of a sudden we're at 137. And it's going to climb, because like Eric had said, there's still like 800 tests that haven't come back. So we need to stress that wearing the mask, the social distance, just the same basic things we've been saying since March the 3rd. And hopefully with this flyer, it'll probably bring people more aware of it. And like Rick said, let's bring the community in, let's get them involved in it also. Come with innovative ideas, how to help. And it's not only the council, but it's also them. So I think we had great dialogue today. We saw the perspective from everybody. And I'm glad that the gentleman with HVAC came in on the line also and just gave a quick and simple answer to the problem we're going to have, or we're having, about just changing out your air filter, doing your regular maintenance on it. Very simple. My system, I get a warning when to change the filters if I forget. Got a little digital readout that says, change out your filters, it's time. So, they could put it on their schedule or work schedule, or put a sign near where the filters are at, time, this is the date I changed it, and log it in. So this way, you tend to forget, I tend to forget. So, but anyway, it was a great meeting. I want to thank everybody, and we're going to continue to have these meetings to keep the council regularly updated on everything that's going on. I think it's crucial that, because we get the calls, and nothing's worse than going like, I don't know. So I think with Eric's the one that we talked about it the other day, and he says, let's just have, the regular meetings on it. Keep our folks in tune to what's going on out here in Alpine. So with that said, yes, sir.
So related to that, Mayor, I know you and Eric attend the CV meeting each week, and whenever the frequency is. One of the questions raised to me, and this is just for information I forgot to mention, I've gotten a number of questions about what I'll call the lack of updated information, and from residents, and my put back to the residents has been, hey, the city is a recipient of the data. We go to the coordinated meetings amongst leadership across the county. With all the data goes into the county. If the test was done by the feds or the state, it goes directly into the Texas State Department of Health Services very quickly. If it's done locally, it takes a couple of 3 days to get there. I noticed, and I appreciate your comment earlier, I was going to ask you, when I look at the county website, the last time it was updated for news and press releases, which is where it says to go, was June 26th, which was 4 days ago. Mm-hmm. So, and there is not a link to another website that's readily available, unless I'm just a slowbie on this. But I think between you and Eric, continuing to message that to the county, that we really do they need to get the data out and be more than just republicizing the doggone Texas State Department of Health information. I think they need to be more aggressive in providing real information, including, hospitalizations, all of those elements that are not HIPAA issues, but I think everyone's clamoring for, particularly given the amount of COVID cases we have today and the number more we expect.
We could do that. That's not an issue, because I did have a question today. Someone called, how many beds do we have at the hospital? So we can certainly get that information, and then I can ask the judge to send us those links so we can attach to the city website. So they're all updated. Okay?
Thanks.
Okay.
So with that,
Yes, sir.
I propose we adjourn.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, motion's been made to adjourn. There's a second, no debate. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, we're adjourned. Thank y'all very much. You have a good evening.
Thanks.
Bye.